Hey folks, Steve here with an unboxing video for you today, and this video will be looking at Versailles 1919, game designed by Mark Herman and Jeff Engelstein, published by GMT Games. I got my GMT shipment today, so doing a few unboxing videos. This one is one I've been kind of really looking forward to for a while. It's going to be a bit different than a lot of war games that you play, but so I think this is just me saying. I don't have any provable information that really points to it other than posts online from a long while back. This is a game that maybe could have been part of the Great Statesman series, which is sort of a series that isn't really referred to as such, but started with the game Churchill, also has Pericles as part of the series, and then a while back, I think this was going to be called Wilson, like Woodrow Wilson, a long while back, like when the idea first popped into someone's mind for this game. And then I don't know if it's just the design went through so many changes that it ultimately became a new game. So rather than call it Woodrow Wilson or Wilson and being in the Great Statesman series, it's sort of become its own game. I think. I might be off base with that, but that was my understanding, because I recall a post by Mark Herman talking about the Great Statesman series and him mentioning something like this, but this is kind of a different thing. And I know that there's a Great Statesman game that's being developed by, I think, a French or Spanish developer around the Napoleonic Wars and how they ended. So we'll see what the Great Statesman series does. This may be an offshoot, so maybe keep it in mind. It's that sort of game where it's not necessarily a war game. It is a political influence game, sort of, maybe, one way to look at it. So let's take a look at this guy. I'm going to rip the shrink off, or finish ripping it off. I started to pick at it a little bit just so it was easy to get off the box. So right away, this is a thick box, which seems to be more and more the style these days of having the thick box. It is the standard from GMT of being, thick, high-quality cardboard box, nice and sheeny, with a nice sheen on it. And on the back, you can see there's a sort of game board. Again, it's reminiscent a little bit of a Great Statesman game, but it is quite different. And so, there's the blurb about what the game is about. First sentence, gotta love it. Versailles 1919 is not a war game. It's a game of political competition over issues between the great powers, writing the treaty that will end World War I. So this is the capstone for a World War I game, I guess. Playable by 2 to 4 players with a new unique solitaire system. So it says that down here, which is kind of interesting. And it references the Mark Herman Peloponnesian War game that has a kind of a different solitaire system. So there's a couple different ways to play solitaire in here, apparently. It is a shorter playing game, evidently. But you can see we're going to get a game board, one full-color counter sheet, interesting, 4 player reference cards, 1 6-sided die, rules of playbook, a score pad, I'm not sure what that's going to be, many cards, it doesn't say how many, it just says many, wooden cubes and discs, and it lasts from December 1918 to June 1919, players 2 to 4, blah 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 blah. Complexity is 6, so someone's going to say this is more complex than Flying Colors. I'm not sure if that'll be true, but the suitability for solitaire is very high. Again, the solitaire system's mentioned here. So let's get this guy open and check it out. Kind of an interesting, it's very, the brown leather sort of design of the box is kind of interesting. All right. And it's filled to the brim with stuff. So let me zoom back out so you guys can see a little bit better. Okay, so on top we've got the playbook, 32 pages, and it is in the full color 2-column format of GMT. And what's interesting is, and I could tell just looking at it, comprehensive example of play right off the bat for 4 players, which runs from page 2 to 18. So if you really want to learn the game, and knowing that this is going to be similar to the Great Statesman series, and this was true for both of those, you kind of need to learn the game by watching an example of play first before you even read the rules, because you need to see how everything, you have to see how it works together, and then you can kind of peel apart, like taking apart a toaster. You got to see how the toaster works, and then you can start to pick it apart and figure out what each individual component does that feeds into the overall mechanisms of it. That's how I learned the Great Statesman games. I found it easier to explain it and learn it that way, and I suspect it'll be the same here. There's historical commentary on the cards, design notes from both designers, which is always interesting to hear how they look at things. And yeah, this is full color, well detailed, numbers pointing out different parts of the puzzle. Or maybe those are on the map. Those numbers may just be on the map. But yeah, so plenty of stuff that you can look at in the playbook, which is always a joy. Plenty of pictures that feed into the narrative and the ambiance of the time. So there you go, playbook. Looks pretty straightforward there. The actual rules of play are 17 pages. It looks like the regular rules, you can see here, gameplay, turn sequence, these things in detail, kind of take you up to around page 16, and then you get 2-player rules and solitaire rules that are going to finish out, and it actually runs 20 pages. So a few pages of other rules to govern if you're playing with less than 4 players, but otherwise like 16 pages of rules basically. Again, 2-column format, full color. So description of what things are, example of what the game will look like set up, and then how to play the game. And then there's almost more pictures than text on some of these pages, which is good. Lots of ability to see an example, and I think with games like these, it's really important. My general sense of this is it does feel... Oh, it is part of the Great Statesman series. Well, how about that? Okay, it is part of the Great Statesman series. I didn't realize they were going to do that. I thought it... I don't know. Okay. But they broke the change. It was, they were calling each game the Great Statesman series after a Great Statesman. But I guess maybe you want to be careful with Woodrow Wilson. He said and did some unsavory things for all the good that he also did. So he's kind of a controversial historical figure, like they all are. So I don't know. But now you can, I guess that's setting a new trend. In the Great Statesman series, you can call things after a treaty or an important event rather than the person. Solo play aid, which is just 1 page. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Talks about the priorities, so what the bots are going to do. Here is your 1 counter sheet, and it is the thick brown core, but also the rounded corner sheet. So you're just going to be able to punch these things out, and it'll be easy to do. It won't be a hard punching job. Very similar to Coin or other games where you're really looking at these more advanced, high-quality counters that are pre-rounded because of the way that they are pushed out of the sprues. A lot of markers I don't have the context for yet, but goodness there. Nothing too crazy. Here's the scoring pad. Now, I'm not sure what to think of this. It is a pad of sheets that are all the same, and you write up victory point totals, I'm guessing, as you play. So again, probably want to photocopy these after a while if you start running out of the sheets here. But they are, looks like, yeah, I mean, they're double-sided. It's the same, I think, on each side. So there you go. So you can just kind of see what are you going to get points for, controlled issues, strategy tokens on certain things, so on and so forth for each power playing the game. Looks like UK, USA, Italy, and France, the primary allies, surviving allies of World War I. Then we have the map, which we'll set up here in a moment. We're going to keep going through. Here's your 1 die, blue pips on black die, kind of interesting color. Like that die. Here's your wood pieces, so see what, red, blue, yellow, white, presumably for major powers that we're talking about. The U.S. is probably blue. This is not even quite. It's almost yellow-green, so that might be Italy. France might be blue or white. France is probably white, and Britain is red. I'm guessing. I don't really know, but basic stuff, right? You got your blocks, and you got your. My camera's screwing up again. Here's a deck of cards. So these are going to be, each player will have so many of these representing different diplomats of the time. So decent number of cards there. Might be different card types within this packet. I'm not going to rip these open quite yet to verify these, but got those. And then what's interesting is you have these other cards that are much bigger. I mean, just to kind of show, like, this is a much bigger type of card. And I'm not entirely sure what these are meant to represent. It looks like some of these are like, I don't know, sequence of play type of cards. I'm just an uprising check here, and then over here we have commentary on the Rhineland. So there's probably some, you can kind of see there's a differentiation in the cards. So there might be, a small bit that are like this, and then the rest are like these. I'll have to look at this. I really don't know. I haven't dug as deeply into this game before release as I have other games. I kind of want to be surprised and kind of figure it out. Very interesting. And then that is it with a organizer in the box. So I'm quite certain everything should fit in the box after putting it all back together. I'm not even sure a big thick box like this was even needed, but nice to have it. And then just taking a quick look at the map. It is the mounted, thin mounted map, which is the best, absolute best. And I probably need to, flip this over. It's going to be hard to get all on camera, so bear with me here. Okay. So I'm kind of having to set this up haphazardly. Can't get it flat right now. So just taking a look, so you can see there's this is sort of the victory track, which wraps around much like other Great Statesman games. If let's see if I can zoom up here, you can see a lot of charts. The region track for Europe, Balkans, Middle East. Do they not count the Balkans as part of Europe? I don't know. Middle East, Africa, Pacific. These will all matter to some degree. Exhausted influence in military over here. And then over on this is sort of set up. I mean, if I were to hazard a guess, this almost seems like these are like tables in a big conference room where they're doing the diplomacy. So it looks like different cards and different things will move. One is called on the table, so these will be where issues down here will be probably the focus of a particular turn or action. And then up here you have waiting room, so these may be issues that are not on the primary agenda yet. There's a crisis area. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of plays out as we see the Great Statesman series evolve, basically. And again, this one being less about war. And to me, it's kind of interesting to see this evolution of the system because, with... let's put this back in the bag. When the Great Statesman series first came up, and we had Churchill, I mean, there was a war element, but it was so heavily abstracted. But you were still fighting World War II. It was just in the most zoomed out way conceivable, a policy level game, not even a strategic level game, I would call it. In Pericles, you still had a war component. You had battles. You fought battles. But this is kind of a whole different game altogether, where you really don't have battles at all. You might have these crisis events that happen, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But it is a big departure from other games in the series. but I really like the idea of it just being kind of a capstone for World War One era games, right? There are games that are sort of about the lead up to World War One. So those, I think of stuff like Pax Britannica or, what's the game? Europe in Turmoil. I really like that one. So those are games that sort of take place in the time leading up to World War One. Then you have a bunch of World War One games, right? You can play that out and hash it out. And this again is just kind of a neat sort of like, okay, but that time after World War One was such a critical time in determining the future of Europe that would eventually lead into World War Two. I mean, it's just nice to have something like this, allowing folks to get a taste of this period of history where we kind of wash over it, right? We say, oh, it's Versailles, and then World War II happened 2 decades later. You really need to kind of look at this and try to understand what were they trying to achieve with this piece, and was it overly harsh? Was it not harsh enough? I mean, all these different types of things you can think about, and it'll be interesting to see what Mark and Jeff came up with in terms of how you portray all of that. I'm really interested in it, and I think what'll be interesting with this is like, for Pericles, what was hard was to teach somebody how the game worked from the political end, and then you had to learn how to fight the war, right? How to move units across Greece and fight, the Peloponnesian War. But here, you just get away from the whole combat thing. What it really is, it is putting things in terms that I think non-war gamers can really understand, and non-war gamers can really appreciate, because it is focused on a different goal. The fighting is pretty much done. Now it's jockeying for position. I think that's an interesting thing to play out, a conflict simulation of a different sort. So, interested to see this. Like I said, I've enjoyed the Great Statesman series so far. I think they're fun games. Churchill's cool. Pericles is great, though it's hard for people to learn. This one might be easier, but we'll crack that egg soon enough. So, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Hit like if you liked the video. Hit subscribe if you want to see more in the future. Until next time, take care. Keep on gaming.